Hello everyone, let's just get right into it. We're reading Mark chapter 7 verse 24. Jesus left that place and went to the vicinity of Tyre. He entered a house and did not want anyone to know it, yet he could not keep his presence secret. Jesus was like all humans, and conflict made him tired. If you remember from last week, the Pharisees were complaining and accusing Jesus, and I imagine they weren't the only ones. The whole crowd was judgy. There was a Jewish rule back then that if a Jew entered a Gentile home, they would become unclean. Tyre was a Gentile city, but Jesus was still tired. Jesus wasn't afraid to enter a Gentile home, but he was tired of accusations, so he didn't want to be noticed. Also, it's not clear whose home this was, because it wasn't the home of the woman we meet. Let's read that. In fact, as soon as she heard about him, a woman whose little daughter was possessed by an evil spirit came and fell at his feet. The woman was a Greek born in Syrian Phoenicia. She begged Jesus to drive the demon out of her daughter. First, let the children eat all they want, he told her, for it is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to their dogs. Yes, Lord, she replied, but even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs. Then he told her, for such a reply you may go. The demon has left your daughter. She went home and found her child lying on the bed and the demon gone. Jesus actually gives her an interesting test here. It's a strange test, but it seems clear that Jesus was testing her faith and humbleness, which he has done many times, but usually not in this way. And I think he was actually being a little sarcastic, but maybe also a little truthful. You know how you sometimes impersonate someone that has said something many times or is very predictable? Usually to get a laugh, but sometimes just to get a point across. I think that Jesus was doing that and just saying what any Jew or Pharisee would say. He likens the Gentiles to dogs that eat off the floor. The children of Israel was his main ministry, so they get it first. But the women didn't argue that they were quote-unquote lower than the Jews, but she still recognized that she needed Jesus. Again, this was a strange test, but it worked very well because it showed her humbleness and faith. And so I think that's kind of the lesson for us. The point isn't that we're not as worthy as others, the point is that none of us are worthy, but we still need to recognize that we need Jesus. Let's read starting in verse 31 now. Then Jesus left the vicinity of Tyre and went through Sidon down to the Sea of Galilee and into the region of the Decapolis. There some people brought to him a man who was deaf and could hardly talk, and they begged him to place his hand on the man. After he took him aside, away from the crowd, Jesus put his fingers into the man's ears. Then he spit and touched the man's tongue. He looked up to heaven, and with a deep sigh he said to him, Ephphatha, which means, be opened. At this the man's ears were opened, his tongue was loosened, and he began to speak plainly. Jesus commanded them not to tell anyone, but the more he did so, the more they kept talking about it. People were overwhelmed with amazement. He has done everything well, they said. He even makes the deaf hear and the mute speak. First, I'd like to mention that Mark's wording here seems to allude to Isaiah 35:5, so that's cool. This miracle was similar to others in some ways, but different in others. Since the man was deaf and mute, then Jesus couldn't really ask him questions, and I wasn't completely sure of the reasoning behind Jesus putting his fingers in the man's ears and mouth. You can theorize on that one, but I think that a good point is that he might have done it that way, just to prove that he doesn't heal people in one way. That's apparent throughout the Gospels. He's always healing someone differently. That can pertain to our lives as well, and it's difficult because we would like to be healed one way, but we might get healed in a different way that we might not like. But God will still heal us, And that's good. We need to count our blessings. Thanks, everyone.